American servicemen in Iraq or the lives of the Iraqis themselves, not important. Why is it that it has to be a president who's shot for things to matter? You know, when I played Macbeth, quite a few years ago now, when I played Macbeth, it struck me, and I tried to communicate this in various ways during the play. When the play Macbeth opens, Macbeth has just come back from hacking down 150 peasant warriors for the king. That's not a problem, you see, because they're peasant warriors. And so Macbeth can hack them limb from limb, be covered in their blood and intestines and striding through like some ancient demon of skinless, sinewy, bloody death. No problem. He doesn't lose any sleep over that. But got one mafia-style king, and it's like, oh no, the king is dead. Who'd have thought the old man had so much blood in him? I'll never be able to sleep again. I'm going to go crazy. Ah! Right? Why, oh why, was the king's life, who ordered the battle that Macbeth slew so many people in? I don't know if it's 150, but it doesn't really matter. He's a pretty hard-assed, murderous, sociopathic son of a bitch. Why does the king's life matter, but the peasant warriors don't matter at all? Good job slaughtering all of those largely defenseless people with your giant sword and armor, Macbeth. Good job. Well done being a human combine harvester, going through the Scottish citizenry and turning them into tiny chunks of plant fertilizer. Excellent job, Mr. Macbeth. But boy, you got the king who ordered it all. Oh, man. That is the worst thing ever. Now, it's King Lear. Oh, the king goes mad. Well, that's really, well, actually, it's kind of terrible, as we talked about with Frozen. But so why does it? What's with JFK? He was just some drug-addicted, naked swimming playboy with a hot wife and banging every secretary who bent over to pick up a pencil in a 4-mile vicinity. What the fuck? Who cares? So this idea, it's like. Well, the 9/11 thing, it was an inside job. It's like, well, we already know that Al-Qaeda was an inside job. We already know that ISIS was an inside job. Do we really need that too? That's already known and admitted. That's not even controversial to anybody who's read anything other than the mainstream media. CNN. Pfft.
Well, yeah, that's the problem.
Right, so why? It's a form of not confronting the obvious. That's all. It's a form of avoidance, this conspiracy theory stuff. It's like, let me muck about in the bowels of the internet and let me become a specialist in 6 different fields to figure out what temperature steel could melt at, and let me review footage of grainy nonsense and let blah, 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 blah. When the government does something shitty, of course it hides the evidence. I mean, the government was laughing, and this is not just made up or a theory. This is actual fact. Government was laughing about the JFK stuff. They fucked up the Warren Commission, sure. That way, everybody who's got some sort of bent towards criticizing those in authority gets dragged into that stuff. And then every now and then they release a little bit more information, like putting chum in the water to attract the sharks. And then everybody would go scurrying off, and it's like, beautiful, fantastic. Skeptics have been effectively neutralized, sir. Good job. That way, no change will occur because people are chasing clues that will never, ever materialize into anything. And let's say tomorrow it turns out that the chairman of the Federal Reserve in the 1960s ordered a hit on JFK. So what? What's that going to change? One more crime on a huge pile of crimes. State is responsible for over 250 million deaths in the 20th century. But boy, put one pretty boy Kennedy on top, and suddenly everyone sees the rest of the 250 million bodies? I don't think so. So the conspiracy theory is just a huge waste of time and effort and energy. It's incredibly selfish. It's incredibly wasteful. And it distracts people from those of us who are criticizing the real issues, which is the initiation of the use of force, which is bad parenting. And it's selfish. It's self-indulgent. People like doing that kind of stuff because it makes them feel superior to others. You know, anybody who gathers together esoteric and unimportant bits of information that they think are crucial to the future of humanity gets to lord it over and feel superior to other people who are just So stupid, man. I mean, can't they even figure it out? I mean, they just swallow everything the mainstream narrative says. They don't even think for themselves. I'm so much smarter and wiser because I go to a bunch of people's websites and I go to a bunch of people's YouTube channels and I'm like so much better than all these other people who are just like idiots swallowing the mainstream message like Jenna Jameson with a deep throat complex. And it just feels so superior to everyone. It's like, fuck your superiority. You're inferior because you don't need any of that stuff. Just go to people and say, the initiation of force is immoral. Statism relies upon the initiation of force. Done. No. Have to figure out who's on the grassy knoll. And we have to figure out at what temperature steel actually melts. And we have to do this and we have to do that. And it's like, oh my God. You don't need it. You don't need it. And they could not serve the state any better because they make those who question the dominant narrative, you're crazy by association.
Exactly.
Right? So they're selfishly indulging their own pathetic superiority complexes in order to muddy the waters for those of us who are actually trying to get some goddamn stuff done in the world. So no, I am not a big fan of this conspiracy theory stuff. It's self-indulgent, it muddies the water, and it serves those in power, and people should just fucking stop it. I know they won't, because they're selfish, and they want to feel superior to other people, but they should.
Right. I mean, so how do you stop that then? I mean, because it is a waste of time. I do agree with you. I think that a lot of the conspiracy stuff is just
what do you mean? I just made a speech about it.
Well, I mean, to not engage in it completely, yeah, I do agree with that. But when you try to have rational conversations that are nothing to do with conspiracies, yet people still call you tinfoil hat, how can you combat that?
What do you mean? How do you combat someone who says, when you put forward a reasoned and evidenced proposition, and they say you've just got a tinfoil hat on? What do you mean? How do you combat that?
I mean, I don't understand
what you mean.
That seems like the insurmountable problem to most of our problems.
It's not an insurmountable problem. If I sit down and play chess with someone and they start throwing fish at me, well, that's an insurmountable problem. How do you get them to play chess? You don't. So long, and thanks for all the fish. Booyah! Douglas Adams jokes. First time since the essay on the fisherman in Newfoundland. Anyway. So no, I mean, what do you mean? There's no insurmountable difficulty here. You don't deal with people who don't deal with facts. You don't deal with people who don't deal with reason. You don't insult reason by pretending to reason with people who are irrational. You can't reason people out of beliefs they were never reasoned into. You can point out that it's irrational prejudice and bigotry and they're being downright stupid. And they'll either listen to you with humility and start to pull their brains together using all of their squid-like capacities of reasoning. But most likely they're just going to get angry because remember, dude... I hate to say it. You have to remember this. Most people are idiots. Most people are idiots. And so how do you get complex information across to idiots? You don't. Because idiots don't matter in the world. In the long run. Yeah, in the short run, they're in the way. But in the long run, idiots don't. Name me someone with an IQ of 95 from the 17th century. Go!
No answer.
No answer. They don't show up in history. They're not even like, those pictures from the 19th century where they've got the crowd watching the regatta and the crowds are just like these little paint splatters, right? So they're like the kids falling into the sausage maker in Pink Floyd's The Wall movie. I mean, they get no faces. They just pass through. They leave no imprint on history. They're just the ballast. I mean, George Carlin's got a great line. He says, just because he is a smart guy. He said, just think of how stupid the average person is. Well, half of them are dumber than that. And it takes a special kind of stupid to think that you're good at philosophy when you'd never studied it and never been challenged on it. Like, it takes a special kind of stupid to say, I could totally take Muhammad Ali in his prime. Because I played boxing on the Atari 400 8 times when I was a kid. It takes a special kind of stupid to think you're good at something you've never been trained at, never disciplined yourself about. Like you see these little kids, and I was one of them, right? And they watched a kung fu movie, and what do? They start kicking each other. And it takes a special kind of stupid to say, I don't know why these kung fu masters study for years to get a black belt. I can kick people. I can kick people when they're sleeping. I can kick people under the table. I can kick people on the bus. This is easy. I mean, I guess I'm just naturally really, really great at kung fu because, look, I just kicked. Oh, look, I can kick myself. That's pretty cool. I don't see people in kung fu movies kicking themselves. I must be even better than the people in kung fu movies. Perhaps I should put on an exhibition called I Kick People. Right? I mean, it takes a special kind of moron to drive everyone out of the karaoke room and think you can open in Vegas. Right? I mean, and most people have, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? They have no idea how bad they are at thinking. And that's because they're raised by women and taught by women. And then by the time that men show up in their lives, it's too late. No, but they don't know how to think. And they don't know that they don't know how to think. Right? Nothing breeds humility like expertise. Nothing breeds humility like expertise, because once you can become good at something, you can appreciate something that's good. And once you become good at something, you realize how bad you are at everything else. Like I've devoted my life to communication, to thinking, to studying, to reading, to expostulation, to sophistry, some people think, right? But I have dedicated my whole life to thinking and communicating in various forms. And for the most part, some coding. But so because I become good at that, after 45,000 hours of practice, because I've become good at that, I recognize how bad I am at everything else, right? Hey, I play a little piano, but I'm really bad at it. Play a little bit of guitar, I'm really bad at it. Sing a little, pretty bad at it, right? I get that I'm not very good at stuff because I know what it is to be good at something and how much time it takes and how much work it takes. So when people are like, well, you just a tinfoil hat tard, right? It's like, well, it's like just think of the kid with the little plastic axe thinking he's a fireman, or think of the 6-year-old kid kicking another kid thinking he's Bruce Lee. You're not. You're not, and they're offended when people point that out. I'm a fireman. No, you're in a pull-up. You're not even playing it, being a fireman. And so people, they're out there saying, I'm rebutting your argument because you're a poopy head. Like, okay, well, have fun with your little toy axe. We've got to go and put out some fires like big people do. But yeah, stupid. So the idea like this, they're stupid relative to smart people, and they're stupid relative to people who've got some experience and some training. Right? That's all. That's all. They're stupid. And they might be relatively smart at other things. They're just not good at this thing. Anyway, they may be good mechanics. They may be fine dentists. Who knows, right? They're just not good at conceptual, rigorous, rational thought. I can buy a microscope. Does not make me a scientist.
Yeah, no, you have to know what you're talking about. You gotta walk the walk, so to speak.
Yeah, what happens is that you're surrounded by stupid people, and you're trying to figure out how to make them smart.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Essentially.
Right. You can't. You can. And this is not my opinion. This is just science. IQ doesn't change over life. You're trying to talk people into being taller than they are. Right? It's a great quote from Murray Rothbard, who everyone should read. He said, "It is no crime to be ignorant of economics, which is, after all, a specialized discipline and one that most people consider to be a dismal science. But it is totally irresponsible to have a loud and vociferous opinion on economic subjects while remaining in this state of ignorance." And that's what you should think about with this. It's no crime to be ignorant. Fine, people don't know how to think. They're ignorant of philosophy. They're ignorant of the necessary disciplines of the Socratic method. Fine. It's totally irresponsible to think you can think